Welcome to Godless and Grounded. Imagine living in a world where every failed prediction is just brushed under the rug and every new prophecy is sold like a fresh product on a supermarket shelf. That's exactly how religions have operated for centuries. They sell you fear, they sell you hope, and most importantly, they sell you certainty about the future. The only problem is, those prophecies almost never come true. But instead of admitting the obvious, believers spin them, excuse them, or simply ignore them. So today, let's talk about some of the funniest lies that were sold as sacred prophecies. Let's start with the classic one, the end of the world. If you put together every religious prophecy about the end times, humanity should have been wiped out hundreds of times already. Christianity alone has had dozens of failed apocalypse dates. For example, St. Clement of Rome predicted that the world would end. Then there was Montanus, a 2nd century Christian prophet who told people the end was near and convinced many to abandon their lives and follow him. Spoiler alert, the world did not end. Instead, what ended were people's savings, their homes, their families, and their sanity, because they gave everything up for a prophecy that never delivered. Move forward to the year 1000. European Christians were certain that the turn of the millennium would bring Jesus back and destroy the world. People were terrified. Churches were packed, kings were repenting, and poor peasants were praying for their lives. Midnight came, the year 1000 arrived, and nothing happened. Imagine the disappointment. It's not just Christianity. Islam too has a long list of prophecies that failed in funny ways. Early Islamic traditions claimed that the hour was very near. So near that Muhammad supposedly told his companions that their lifetimes would witness the end. One hadith compares the time left of the world to the distance between his 2 fingers held close together. Now, if someone says the end is this close, you'd think maybe, just maybe, the prophecy expired. Yet generation after generation, Muslims are told the end is around the corner. It's the ultimate recycling scam. They keep selling the end is near forever, and people keep buying it. Judaism has its own share of failed prophecies too. The Hebrew Bible is full of predictions about the Messiah who is supposed to establish a kingdom of peace and make everything perfect. Since then, countless self-declared messiahs have shown up, all claiming to be the one. Each time they failed. One of the most famous was Simon bar Kokhba in the 2nd century. He led a rebellion against Rome, and many Jews truly believed he was the Messiah. What happened? Rome crushed the rebellion. Hundreds of thousands were killed. So the prophecy failed, but instead of admitting it was a lie, rabbis just shifted the goalpost. Oh, the Messiah will come later. That later has been dragging on for more than 2 millennia. Hinduism is no different when it comes to laughable prophecy claims. According to Hindu tradition, the god Vishnu has 10 avatars, and the final one, Kalki, will appear at the end of the current age to destroy evil and restore righteousness. Now here's the funny part. The prophecy says he will come riding a white horse with a blazing sword. Imagine living in the 21st century and still waiting for a warrior on horseback to show up, when people today travel in electric cars, rockets, and drones. The prophecy already sounds outdated before it even happens. People keep believing because faith has nothing to do with reality. One of the funniest things about religious prophecies is how vague they are. They're written in riddles, metaphors, and cryptic language so that no matter what happens, believers can twist them into fulfillment. Take the famous prophecies in the Book of Revelation. People have linked them to Napoleon, Hitler, Saddam, Obama, the Pope. Basically, anyone you don't like can be painted as the Antichrist if you're creative enough. The prophecy is so elastic that it never fails because it was never meant to be precise in the first place. It's like saying, something big will happen in the future. Well, of course it will. That's not prophecy, that's common sense. Let's also talk about Jehovah's Witnesses because they are the champions of failed prophecies. They have predicted the end of the world multiple times with specific years. 1874, 1914, 1925, 1975, and even hinted at 2000. Each time, believers sold their homes, quit their jobs, and prepared for Armageddon. and each time nothing happened. Imagine a company releasing a product that fails catastrophically every single time, but customers keep lining up to buy the next one. That's religion for you? And then we have Islam again, where end-time prophecies are incredibly specific yet hilariously false. There are claims that before the Day of Judgment, the Euphrates River will uncover a mountain of gold that people will fight over. Well, the Euphrates is drying up due to climate change and dams, not because of divine miracles. And guess what? No golden mountain has appeared. Another prophecy says that the sun will rise from the west instead of the east. That's scientifically impossible unless the Earth suddenly reverses its rotation, which would literally kill all life on the planet. But believers repeat it with a straight face as if it's profound wisdom. Christian prophecies about Jesus returning are another endless comedy. Every generation is convinced they are living in the last days. During the Black Death in the 14th century, people thought the plague was proof of the end. During World War I and II, preachers said it was the fulfillment of prophecy. During the Cold War, it was the Soviet Union. Today, it's climate disasters or Israel's politics. The formula never changes. Whatever scary thing is happening becomes a sign of the prophecy. Yet somehow, the end never arrives. It's like a horror movie franchise that refuses to end. No matter how many times the monster is killed, it always comes back with a new sequel. Now let's ask, why do people keep falling for these lies? The answer is simple. Prophecies give people a sense of control in an uncontrollable world. Life is uncertain, death is scary, disasters are random. So when someone claims to know the future, it feels comforting. Even if that prophecy fails, people prefer to believe it was misinterpreted rather than admit they were fooled. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. When the prophecy fails, instead of losing faith, many believers actually become more devoted because they can't handle the embarrassment of admitting they wasted their lives on a lie. Take the example of the Millerites in the 19th century. A preacher named William Miller predicted that Jesus would return. Tens of thousands of people believed him. They sold their possessions, left their farms, and climbed hills to wait for the second coming. When nothing happened, it became known as the Great Disappointment. You would think that would be the end of it, but no. Instead, many of the followers simply reinterpreted the event. They said Jesus did return, but invisibly in heaven. That movement later evolved into the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which has millions of followers today. Imagine how absurd that is. A prophecy fails, and instead of rejecting it, people invent an invisible fulfillment to keep the lie alive. Islam has a similar tactic. Whenever a prophecy clearly fails, scholars rush to explain it away. If Muhammad said the end would come within his followers' lifetime, and it didn't, they say, oh, he meant something else, or it was metaphorical. The same excuse works for prophecies about earthquakes, comets, or the conquest of cities. If it happens, they claim victory. If it doesn't, they reinterpret. It's a win-win game for religion, but a lose-lose for truth. Even modern prophets keep the tradition alive. Remember Harold Camping? He was a Christian radio preacher who predicted the rapture in 1994. It didn't happen. Then he said it would be May 21st, 2011. Millions listened. Some spent their life savings on billboards warning people. The day came, nothing happened. He then said, oh wait, it's actually October 21st, 2011. Again, nothing. After that, he quietly admitted he was wrong, but by then, the damage was done. People lost money, jobs, families, and dignity. And still, some remained loyal to him. That's the power of religious conditioning. Here's the funniest part. Even when prophecies are so wrong they're laughable, believers still find ways to celebrate them. When the Jehovah's Witnesses' 1975 prophecy failed, leaders said, well, maybe it was just a test of faith. A test of faith? That's like promising your kid a bicycle for their birthday, not buying it, and then saying the disappointment was just to test their love for you. If anyone else pulled this trick, they'd be called liars, but in religion it becomes a divine mystery. What makes it even funnier is how prophecies often get adjusted to fit scientific discoveries. For example, Some Muslims claim that the Quran predicted modern technology like airplanes or space travel. They say things like, look, the Quran mentions iron being sent down, so that proves it knew about meteorites. Or, the Quran says humans will travel beyond the heavens. That means space travel. But the actual verses are vague poetry that could mean anything. Yet after science makes progress, suddenly the old vague lines become prophecies. That's not prophecy, that's retroactive interpretation. It's like predicting that a great light will shine in the sky. And when someone invents a flashlight centuries later, you say, see, I told you so. Where we left off, we saw how religions play a clever game of adjusting their predictions after they fail. They twist words, reinterpret symbols, or invent invisible fulfillments. But let's push further and see just how absurd some of these sacred prophecies are when you actually think about them. Take Nostradamus, for example. People treat him like the ultimate prophet. His vague verses are dragged out every time a major event happens. September 11th, supposedly he predicted it. Hitler? They say he foresaw him too. COVID-19? Oh yes, someone always finds a Nostradamus quatrain that seems to fit. But if you read his actual writings, they're just random poetry with lines like, from the sky will come a great king of terror, or near the gates of Europe, a great calamity will be born. You could apply that to literally anything, a war, a flood, a stock market crash, even a Taylor Swift concert being canceled. Yet people act like he had mystical insight. Nostradamus wasn't a prophet. He was just a master of being vague. In fact, that's the trick. The vaguer the prophecy, the harder it is to prove it wrong. Now compare that with religious prophets who sometimes get too specific and end up embarrassing themselves. In the Bible, Jesus supposedly said that this generation will not pass away until all these things take place, referring to the end of the world and his return. That's in the Gospel of Matthew. If words mean anything, it means Jesus promised the apocalypse would happen within the lifetime of his listeners. That generation died almost 2,000 years ago. The world kept going. The prophecy failed. Christians have been trying to reinterpret that line ever since, saying generation doesn't really mean generation, or maybe it refers to some symbolic group. It's like being told your pizza will arrive in 30 minutes, and when it shows up 2 days later, the delivery guy insists that by minutes, he really meant centuries. Only religion gets away with that level of dishonesty. Islam has its own gems of failed detail. There's a hadith where Muhammad supposedly said that the last hour will not come until the Arabian desert becomes green with rivers flowing. Now, due to climate change and artificial irrigation, parts of Saudi Arabia are indeed greener today. Believers point at it and shout, see, prophecy fulfilled. But hold on. That's not a divine prediction. That's just geography and human engineering. Deserts have shifted throughout history. The Sahara, for instance, was once lush and green thousands of years ago. Predicting that a desert might one day change climate is about as impressive as predicting that someday it will rain again. That's not prophecy, that's just nature. Another classic Islamic prophecy is about the conquest of Constantinople. Muhammad supposedly predicted that Muslims would conquer the great city, and it eventually happened in 1453 under the Ottoman Empire. Believers parade this as proof of prophecy. But let's be real, Constantinople was the richest city in the region, constantly under siege. Predicting it would eventually fall is like predicting that the most hunted deer in the forest will eventually be caught. It's not divine foresight, it's basic probability. If you guess enough obvious things, eventually you'll be right and everyone will forget the things you guessed wrong. But what about the truly ridiculous prophecies that don't just fail but make no sense from the start? In the Christian book of Revelation, it says the stars will fall to the earth. Now think about this with a modern brain. Stars are massive suns, thousands or millions of times bigger than Earth. If even one star got close, Earth would be vaporized instantly. The idea that stars could fall onto Earth like shooting pebbles is laughable. It shows the author had zero understanding of the cosmos. Yet for centuries, people treated this as sacred prophecy. It's like reading an ancient book that says the moon will crack open like an egg and omelets will rain down, and calling it divine wisdom. Speaking of the moon, Islam has the famous prophecy of the moon splitting. The Quran mentions that the hour has drawn near and the moon has been split. Islamic tradition claims Muhammad once pointed at the moon and it split in two, witnessed by people in Mecca. Except here's the problem. No one else on Earth saw it. Ancient civilizations that studied the sky in detail, like the Chinese or Indians, have no record of such a cosmic event. If the moon actually split in half, the entire planet would have noticed. Instead, the only evidence we have is a religious text telling the story. And today, Muslims insist NASA has somehow confirmed it. Newsflash: NASA has confirmed no such thing. The moon is perfectly fine and unsplit. The prophecy is not just false, it's hilariously false. Christianity also has its share of signs in the sky nonsense. The book of Acts says the sun will turn to darkness and the moon to blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord. Well, we know what eclipses and red moons are. They're natural phenomena, predictable with scientific precision. People in ancient times thought they were signs from gods because they didn't understand astronomy. Today, we can tell you the exact date of the next eclipse. That's science, not prophecy. Religion took natural events, wrapped them in scary language, and sold them as divine warnings. It's like someone predicting there will be snow in winter and calling it miraculous. Another funny aspect of prophecies is how they rely on fear to keep people obedient. If you tell people the world is ending soon, they're more likely to give up their possessions, donate to religious leaders, and live under strict rules. It's the ultimate control tactic. The funniest lie isn't even the prophecy itself, but the way it gets used to exploit people. Look at cults like Heaven's Gate. They believed a prophecy that a spaceship hidden behind the Hale-Bopp comet would take them to salvation. In 1997, 39 members killed themselves, convinced they'd be beamed up. It was tragic, but also shows how powerful the lie of prophecy can be. And if you think mainstream religions are different, remember that they too have been running the same scheme for centuries, just with better PR. Even today, in the age of science and reason, religious prophecies continue to circulate. Some evangelical Christians are convinced that modern Israel is the fulfillment of biblical prophecy and that we're in the end times. Some Muslims believe in bizarre end-time signs, like talking animals, Gog and Magog monsters, and the Mahdi leading armies. These aren't just funny, they're absurd fairy tales being sold to adults who should know better. Imagine waiting for a mythical beast to crawl out of the ground and thinking that's serious theology. Yet millions do. And then there's the strategy of making prophecies so far into the future that no one alive can ever verify them. Hinduism says the Kali Yuga, the current age of darkness, will last for 432,000 years, and we're only about 5,000 years in. That's the safest scam in history. You promise something that won't happen for hundreds of thousands of years, so no one can ever prove you wrong. By the time it fails, humanity will be long gone. It's like promising your grandchildren's grandchildren will inherit a golden palace, knowing you'll never be around to deliver. Religion has mastered this kind of long-term scam. Let's not forget the modern attempts to recycle ancient prophecies with a scientific twist. Some Muslims now claim that the Quran predicted the Big Bang, black holes, or embryology. Christians do the same with Bible verses about the earth being a circle or the life being in the blood. These are not prophecies. They're desperate attempts to retrofit science into old books. If these texts truly predicted modern discoveries, they would have advanced science centuries earlier. Instead, scientists had to fight religious opposition to make progress. Galileo wasn't praised for fulfilling prophecy, he was punished for contradicting it. At the end of the day, the funniest part of religious prophecy is not the lies themselves, but how people cling to them even after being proven false again and again. Humanity has survived countless predicted apocalypses. We've watched prophecy after prophecy fail spectacularly. And yet, new ones keep coming, and people keep believing. It's like watching someone get scammed by the same con artist over and over, and instead of learning the lesson, they thank the con artist for keeping their faith strong. The truth is, prophecies survive not because they're true, but because people desperately want them to be true. They give meaning to suffering, they provide hope for justice, and they promise a cosmic plan in a chaotic universe. But when you step back and look at them with clear eyes, they're nothing more than funny lies dressed up as sacred wisdom. From the Messiah who never came, to the apocalypses that never arrived, to the stars that never fell, religion has been selling broken promises for thousands of years. And maybe that's the final prophecy we can actually trust. As long as there are people afraid of the future, there will always be prophets ready to sell them a lie. That prophecy, unlike all the others, sadly keeps coming true.